if an FBI agent knocks. People opposing U.S. policies in Central America, giving sanctuary to refugees from Guatemala and El Salvador, struggling for black liberation, and against nuclear weapons, are today more than ever likely to receive visits from FBI agents or other federal investigators. Increasingly, agents are also visiting the families, friends, and employers of these activists. This pamphlet is designed to answer the most frequent questions asked by people and groups experiencing government scrutiny, and to help them develop practical responses. What is political intelligence? Political intelligence is information collected by the government about individuals and groups. Files secure under the Freedom of Information Act disclose that government officials have long been interested in all forms of data. Information gathered by government agents ranges from the most personal data about sexual liaisons and preferences to estimates of the strength of groups opposing U.S. policies. Over the years, groups and individuals have developed various ways of limiting the collection of information and preventing such intelligence gathering from harming their work. Do I have to talk to the FBI? No. The FBI does not have the authority to make anyone answer questions, other than name and address, see errata, 2. Permit a search without a warrant, or to otherwise cooperate with an investigation. Agents are usually lawyers, and they are always trained as investigators. They have learned the power of persuasion, the ability to make a person feel scared, guilty, or impolite for refusing their requests for information. So remember, they have no legal authority to force people to do anything, unless they have obtained an arrest or search warrant. Even when agents do have warrants, you still don't have to answer their question. Under what laws do the agents operate? In 1976, FBI guidelines regulating the investigation of political activities were issued by Attorney General Edward H. Levi. Criticized by liberals and conservatives alike, the guidelines were issued in the wake of a congressional committee's report of highly questionable activities by the FBI, monitoring the activities of domestic political groups seeking to effect change. The report exposed the FBI's counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, under which the agency infiltrated groups, compiled dossiers on, and directly interfered with individuals engaged in activities protected by the First Amendment rights to freedom of expression and association. The FBI COINTELPRO program was initiated in 1956. Its purpose, as described later by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize activities of those individuals and organizations whose ideas or goals he opposed. Tactics included falsely labeling individuals as informants, infiltrating groups with persons instructed to disrupt the group, sending anonymous or forged letters designed to promote strife between groups, initiating politically motivated IRS investigations, carrying out burglaries of offices and unlawful wiretaps, and disseminating to other government agencies and to the media unlawfully obtained derogatory information on individuals and groups. In 1983, Attorney General William French Smith issued superseding guidelines that authorized domestic security/terrorism investigations against political organizations whenever the FBI had a reasonable belief that these groups might violate a law. The new guidelines permitted the same intrusive techniques the FBI used against organized crime. The Smith guidelines were justified by the Attorney General's observation that our citizens are no less threatened by groups which engage in criminal violence for political purposes than by those which operate lawlessly for financial gain. He concluded, "We must ensure that criminal intelligence resources that have been brought to bear so effectively in organized crime and racketeering investigations are effectively employed in domestic security/terrorism cases." The guidelines provide, therefore, no safeguards to protect against infringements of First Amendment rights. Worst, they ignore the history of COINTELPRO abuses, and abolish the distinction between regular criminal investigations and investigations of groups and individuals seeking political change. They fail to limit the investigative techniques used to obtain data on political groups, so that now the FBI may use any technique, including electronic surveillance and informers, against political organizations. Today, the FBI may begin a full investigation whenever there is a reasonable indication that two or more persons are engaged in an enterprise for the purpose of furthering political or social goals wholly or in part through activities that involve force or violence and a violation of the criminal laws of the United States. The FBI has interpreted force or violence to include the destruction of property as a symbolic act, and the mere advocacy of such property destruction would trigger an investigation, even without any reasonable indication, under a separate guideline on civil disorders and demonstrations involving a federal interest. The FBI may investigate an organization that plans only legal and peaceful demonstrations. Another set of rules governing federal intelligence gathering is Executive Order 12333, in force since 1981. It authorizes the FBI and CIA to infiltrate, manipulate and destroy U.S. political organizations, as well as to use electronic surveillance under the pretext of an international intelligence investigation. What federal agencies are likely to be interested in a citizen's political activities and affiliations? The FBI is still the major national intelligence gathering agency. There are also many other federal, state, local and private investigative agencies. At least 26 federal agencies may gather intelligence, including the Immigration and Naturalization Service, Internal Revenue Service, and the Treasury Department's Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms. Local police agencies sometimes contain special services units and narcotics or other strike forces in which federal, state, and local agencies cooperate. The Central Intelligence Agency and National Security Agency are particularly active when a political organization has or is suspected to have international contacts. Military security agencies and increasingly significant private research institutes and security agencies also gather intelligence. A recent Freedom of Information Act request on behalf of the Livermore Action Group, an anti-nuclear organization, revealed that the Navy, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the Marine Corps all sent agents to the group's public meetings and kept newspaper reports of such meetings. Most chilling was the revelation that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the federal agency charged with implementing martial law in the event of a nuclear war, was also watching the Livermore Group. Federal and state, local and private agencies all tend to share information in a variety of ways. How does the FBI learn about citizens and organizations? Political intelligence is gathered from public sources, such as newspapers and leaflets. It is also collected by informers who may be government employees or people recruited by them. Political intelligence is also collected through FBI visits to your home or office. We are here most concerned with this aspect of intelligence gathering. Agents may be sent to interview people after FBI officials decide there is a reasonable indication that an organization or person meets the guidelines for a domestic security investigation. Such interviews are a primary source of information, for most people are not aware of their right not to talk to federal agents. Most people are also unaware of the limits to the power of FBI and other investigative agents. Many people visited by agents are also afraid of being rude or uncooperative. Agents may be friendly and courteous, as if they are attempting to protect you or your organization, or express admiration for your organization and its goals. Occasionally, the FBI may persuade a disaffected member of an organization to give them information about other members, including their personal lives, character and vulnerabilities. A major job of FBI agents is to convince people to give up their rights to silence and privacy. For example, after a Quaker pacifist spoke in Anchorage, Alaska, at a memorial service for El Salvador's Archbishop Romero, FBI agents visited a local priest and interrogated him about the speaker. The agents asked about the speaker's organizational affiliations and expressed fears about terrorist connections. The agents informed the priest that they would do a computer check on the speaker and his wife, and asked the priest if the two might do violence to the U.S. president, scheduled to visit the area. These interrogations were repeated in the community by agents who later admitted there was no basis for their questions about terrorist connections and the danger to the president. What if I suspect surveillance? Prudence is the best course, no matter who you suspect, or what the basis of your suspicion. When possible, confront the suspected person in public, with at least one other person present. If the suspect declines to answer, he or she at least now knows that you are aware of the surveillance. Recently, religious supporters of a nationwide call to resist possible U.S. intervention in Central America noticed unfamiliar people lurking around their offices at 6 a.m., but failed to ask what they wanted and who they were. If you suspect surveillance, you should not hesitate to ask the suspected agents' names and inquire about their business. The events giving rise to suspicions of surveillance vary widely, but a general principle remains constant: confront the suspected agents politely and in public, never alone, and inquire of their business. If the answer does not dispel your suspicion, share it with others who may be affected and discuss a collective response. Do not let fears generated by conspicuous surveillance create unspoken tensions that undermine your work and organization. Creating fear is often the purpose of obvious surveillance. When in doubt, call a trusted lawyer familiar with political surveillance. Please do not call the number that was printed here as the Movement's Support Network hotline, because it is no longer active, and is now the private residence of an unrelated person. How should I respond to threatening letters or calls? If your home or office is broken into, or threats have been made against you, your organization, or someone you work with, share this information with everyone affected. Take immediate steps to increase personal and office security. You should discuss with your organization's officials and with a lawyer whether and how to report such incidents to the police. If you decide to make a report, do not do so without the presence of counsel. What rights do I have? 1. The right to work for change. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects the rights of groups and individuals who advocate, petition, and assemble to accomplish changes in laws, government practices, and even the form of government. Political intelligence gathering is not supposed to interfere with these rights. 2. The right to remain silent. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution provides that every person has the right to remain silent in the face of questions, other than name and address, posed by any police officer or government agent. Since 1970, however, federal prosecutors may request judges to order a subpoenaed witness to testify, after a grant of immunity, at a grand jury hearing or at a criminal trial. This grant of immunity means that your Fifth Amendment right to refuse to testify is taken away. What is given to you is only the promise not to use your testimony against you in a subsequent criminal prosecution. But you can still be charged with the crime. Failure to testify after a grant of immunity is discussed on page 12 below. 3. The right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Without a warrant, no government agent is allowed to search your home or office, or any other place that is yours in private. You may refuse to let FBI agents come into your house or into your workplace, unless they have a search warrant. Politeness aside, the wisest policy is never to let agents inside. They are trained investigators and will make it difficult for you to refuse.